Good evening. I'd like to welcome all of our replay viewers to Tech Talk Thursdays at 8 p.m. And thanks for joining me. And Brad, good evening. I'm just getting in. Let me flip you around. How are you doing tonight, Brad? It's so good to see you. Haven't seen you all week. And good to see you tonight. Well, tonight, we're talking about Anon. Thanks for joining me tonight. This is Avi Uniglicht, your Tech Concierge, for our Thursday evening get-together. We get together at 8 p.m. every week on Thursday nights to talk about some tech. I don't like to talk geek talk. I like to try to bring, a flavor to people that I normally support, which are my clients, both home and small business users. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about 5 tips and tricks that you can take advantage of for using your Wi-Fi. Okay, and normally everyone, hi, Connie, good evening, good to see you. Thanks for joining me tonight. We're talking about Wi-Fi tonight, and I have 5 decent tips that I think you could take advantage of. And I'm going to start with my best tip first. So everyone knows that Wi-Fi is something we take for granted. Okay, it's just something we have. Now, I grew up before we had anything but a very low-speed modem that made all that noise and it dialed up. Today, internet's everywhere. And you get internet on, good evening, Detective Invent. Thanks for jumping on. Everywhere we have access to Wi-Fi almost. It's quote, ubiquitous. But the problem with Wi-Fi in your home is sometimes it just doesn't work the way you'd like it to. And we can start with the fact that, number one, we want to make sure that we have a decent speed. How do you tell how fast your internet is, other than just comparing it to the way it was or where it could be, or maybe a friend's place, So, yes, I'm in media. Thanks for joining me, Citizen King. Grew up in Booth Wynn. Fantastic. That's right around the corner from me. So, how do you tell whether your internet speed is good or not? I have a couple tests that I use that are available on my website. You might want to jot this down. It's the same as my Twitter handle, same as my Periscope handle, aSKaVIE.com. On that site, I have a link called Room Service, and below my Room Service link, yes, speedtest.net is one of the options I have there. I have another option there too. If you scroll to the bottom of my 10-ingredient cocktail, which you may find helpful, you'll find 2 links to, one is speedtest.net, and the other that's more automatic. Speedtest.net gives you an option to choose different sites in your area that can gauge how quickly you're going. Artsy Living, thanks for jumping on board. Good to see you. So what we're talking about is checking first to see how fast your internet speed is. Once you know how fast your speed is, you then know how to determine whether it's good or not. Now, how is it good or not? You need to know what you're paying your internet provider. They charge you a certain amount of money every month to provide you with a certain speed. And if they give you the speed that you're testing out, that's great. But how about the people that are getting much lower speed than their internet provider says they should be getting? Okay? Everybody, if you're on Comcast or if you're on Verizon Fios or you're on another provider in your area somewhere in the world, you will get a gauge as to how fast that internet speed should be. However, if you don't know how fast you are, you can't go back to your provider and say, listen, my internet speed's slow. What should I do? Okay? Now you can tell them, hey, listen, you're offering me 50 megabits per second down, and I'm only getting 5. Now, I have 2 choices. You can boost up my speed or lower my price. I don't want to have to pay for 50 or 100 or 150 if you're only providing me a slower speed. Now, it's one thing for them to provide the speed to you. It's another thing for you to get it. Now, how is it possible for them to be giving you high speed and you not getting it? That could be due to a number of things. One, the distance you are on Wi-Fi from your router. Some people, what is my occupation? My occupation is a consultant, and I do technology support for small businesses and individuals, and I specialize in remote room service all around the country, all around the world. So when you're dealing with a router, you're dealing with a number of different possibilities. Number one, the distance from the router is one issue. If there's any obstructions, I've seen situations where a router is placed near a metal cabinet. And when you have a router near a metal filing cabinet or some other obstruction, a block wall that doesn't allow the signal to go through, guess what happens? Your speed goes down and possibly your connection, okay? There are people that walk around and obstruct the signal with cellular phones or wireless phones that you may have. Something's interfering with the signal strength in the home. And if that happens, or in the office, and if that happens, a good idea is to move the router somewhere. Get it out, take it out of a closet, or if it's behind a door, move it, because that obstruction, the waves that come off of your Wi-Fi are simply that. They're waves of energy. And those radio signals can be blocked and prevented from getting to you. Now, the other possibility is that your router's old, okay? Routers that get old or have old firmware don't operate at peak efficiency. And if you have a router that's been in your home for more than 3 years, I suggest you look at a new router, okay? If you're renting a router from Comcast, yes, Citizen Kane, if you have a Comcast router, you could do one of two things if you're dealing with Comcast. One, you don't have to rent one, okay? You can, depending on what it is. Comcast offers what's called the triple play. And the triple play has the phone on it, and it has your internet. And when you have something like that, they're difficult to come by. They're difficult to buy, and you need the support of Comcast, and they don't sell those to you. You may call them up and see if you can get one, but rarely do I recommend that you get that. If you have internet only with your provider, then you could buy a compatible modem and use a good router. I'm a fan of the Netgear line of routers. Now you'll find Netgear, Linksys, Asus, there's a number of different router manufacturers, but I've always had good luck with Netgear. And if you really want to get a great Netgear router, their Nighthawk series is out of this world, okay? Starting with the AC1900. It's got 3 antennas on it, and you can move them around, and it's just amazing. So in the case of, yes, Fios is another provider through Verizon, and if you can get Fios, Fios is often good. Not so good in some places. It all depends how they install it, whether the wires were run properly and whatnot. But again, Fios has their own modem. Now, one thing that's interesting about Fios is you can take the wire that goes into your Fios modem, if you're only using it for internet, that piece of it, and take it out and plug it into a router. You don't need the modem piece of that. That's already done in another part of your home. You can take the wire that goes into the router and put it into the wireless access part of your own router. And if you get one of these Nighthawks, a lot of people buy their own routers with Fios because the signal strength is really not that great on the Fios modem router. So it's a good idea to shop around and see what you can get. Now, what happens if you don't know how to manage these types of things? Well, you get help, okay? You'll either find somebody local or, sure, Citizen Kane, you could certainly get a hold of me, okay? My website has all my contact information. Be happy to help you, okay? I have a toll-free number on the website. Happy to help you anytime. So that's great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Droy, welcome to the call. We're talking about routers. I just want to recap some of the things I talked about so far. We talked about doing a speed test available at my website. And take a look at the replay on this. It'll be available for 24 hours, as well as I post it up on the website as well, and on catch.me. You'll see links in Twitter and whatnot. So if you have the good speed, terrific. You don't really have to do any more. But many people have challenges with their Wi-Fi. So what they want to do is see if there's any obstructions to the Wi-Fi signal. They also want to do, thank you, Connie, I appreciate those props. The speed of the internet is pending how the router's working, how your modem's working, the signal strength of the router, and all that. Now, what about access to your router? You have neighbors, okay? Your neighbors should not know your password for your router, okay? If you give it out, change it, okay? The other thing is, and this is a big one, okay? The administrative username and password on most routers out of the box, everyone knows, every hacker in the world knows. And if they have access to your network somehow, they can go and make changes to it. How do they get access to your network? By infecting your machine. If your machine gets infected, they can immediately test different usernames and passwords to see if they can break into your router. And if they break into your router, guess what can happen? Your router can get infected even though your antivirus detects nothing on your computer. Redirections can be coming, and that option would be a major issue for you, okay? So you don't want to allow access to your router in any way, especially with malicious software. So the first thing you should do is change the administrative password. That's not the same password as your Wi-Fi password. It's a different password. It's the password that we use to make changes internally to the router. And that's normally done by accessing the router either with some software or through your browser to the gateway IP address. We could talk about that at a later time. I don't want to get technical on you, other than the fact that if you are not the person to install your router, get some help if you don't know what I'm talking about. But it's important to change the administrative access password on your router so that that will allow you to control it and no one else to control it. Okay? And the last thing we want to do is make sure if you have a reasonably new router that you always check the firmware on the router. What's the firmware? That's the software that sits inside the router that makes it work. And companies like Netgear are always tweaking that. The newer model routers automatically can check. If you log into the router as the administrator, you can check for firmware updates. And that should be the first thing you do when you take it out of the box, because most times the router that came out of the box that you just bought today is not running the most current version of the software. So you want to run the firmware updates and make sure that they are handled that way. Okay? So hopefully you've gotten some value out of these tips. Does anybody have any questions that I could field while we're doing this? And while I'm waiting for the questions, I just want to tell you, if you're running Apple's iOS on either an iPhone or iPad, the latest version of Periscope is out. If you haven't downloaded it, it's version 1.2. It offers some very, very neat options. One option is for you to be able to do landscape on Periscope. Now, you could always have used a landscape. The problem was when you turn the phone sideways, all of the comments stayed vertical in the portrait mode. So people couldn't read them and they were having a hell of a time. The hearts would go the wrong direction. With the new version, what happens? It now orients in a landscape mode. So when we turn it over, you'll be able to see that. How do you change from this version? You simply go out to your app store. Now, Connie, if you're on an Android phone, as far as I know, they have not yet released it. But you can check the Android store where you downloaded the app to begin with. If you're on the iPhone, very easy. What you do is go to the App Store. Actually, if you go into your settings and you scroll down to, go to the App Store on your phone. And when you're in the App Store, you will see the updates next to all of you want to look at the current items that are on your phone and go down and do an update. If it says there's an update available for Periscope, just click on that and it'll automatically download and then you can run it. And that's all you need to do. If you don't have Periscope on your phone, you wouldn't be watching me probably right now unless you're on the web. So if you're watching me from the web, please go out and update your phone. Now, that's one big tip. The latest version is very, very cool. Okay. It also allows you now to share. And if you like what you've seen so far tonight, if I could help some of your friends, please share. And when you do the share, you'll be able to see now that you can share on Facebook with the new version. Right now, you can only share on Twitter. But the new version allows you to share both on Twitter and Facebook. And all you have to do is click share on Facebook and boom, the link will go to Facebook. And the neat thing about that is you can edit your posts on Facebook. So when the link expires for what you've seen, you can go in and modify it to the new catch.me URL so it won't be a stale link. So on the replay, you can share with followers. You can actually share a replay on the replay for the 24 hours. You can't share a catch.me, but you can share for 24 hours a replay. Absolutely. And you could also put in hearts. You just can't comment on a replay. But you certainly have the option to do hearts, and you have the option to share. So that hopefully is helpful. And that's it. So normally I spend 15 minutes on Thursday nights. I don't like to go over because I know your time's valuable. An hour ago? We'll have to look at that, Connie. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to do that. That should allow you to do it. So we'll have to look into that, see which one you're dealing with. So, to recap, Thursday nights, 8 p.m., Tech Talk. I'm here to answer your questions and also go over some, pressing types of hardware, software issues. This Sunday, I do a Tech Talk at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm going to have a special guest. My friend Rick Albano is going to be speaking with me about HIPAA compliance. If you have a client or know someone that's in the medical profession, it's very critical that they fully understand the ramifications of using computers in the workplace and how they need to protect their computers and their customers' data or patient data so that they do not get into very expensive legal challenges. So this Sunday, we're going to be talking all about HIPAA compliance, how we help our clients maintain HIPAA compliance, and what I do in conjunction with Rick. Rick does some auditing in this area, and I help him technically get these people up to snuff. So it's a great thing to do, and we should have some fun. Rick's a fun guy. So we're going to do that on Blab, however. Hopefully, if you've not been on Blab, check out blab.im, and you'll see my scheduled post for 11 a.m. Thanks again, everybody, for joining me. I appreciate everybody here, and welcome your friends next week so that they can join us and we'll have some fun. Thanks again. Have a great night. Bye-bye.